Welcome to the Applied Blockchain podcast, where blockchain technology and innovation are in the spotlight. My name is Adi Ben-Ari, and I'm the founder and CEO of Applied Blockchain, and I'll be your host as we dive into relaxed conversations with industry experts and thought leaders to get their views on what they're building, the Web3 ecosystem and its transformative impact on the modern world. David Palmer from Vodafone, welcome to the Applied Blockchain podcast.
Hi, Adi. Really pleased to be here with you today. It's been a long time, but I'm absolutely honored to have got the call up. As you know, we've been in this Web3 space for a while now, so I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah, I think we've bumped into each other at various conferences. I think we've been on a panel together as well. As you probably know, I've got a bit of a history at Vodafone. I spent about 5 years of my career at Group and at UK, and that was those were great formative years when I got to work on some very exciting projects. And you're obviously in the blockchain role there now, so I think it makes perfect sense for us to get on a call like this and have a good chat.
Oh, excellent! Always a pleasure in fact, you'll be surprised at the number of people who have worked in Vodafone in some way that you come into contact with who are now in Web3. So, no, it's an absolute honor, Adi.
Okay, amazing. So, David, maybe for the audience, give us a little bit of background, a little bit about yourself, how you got into the space, how you got into this role, I guess.
So a bit about myself. So I have been in sort of technology for a long time and telecommunications. I've worked on some of the big implementations, so namely DSL, broadband when it came out. I was working on that. Same with fiber to the premises. Same with Internet of Things or machine to machine. And maybe 4 or 5 years ago, started looking at blockchain and telecoms use cases. And at the time, when I was doing the search, there was sort of four search results. And I think they were just some of the big telcos who were just starting to look into it. And I said, hey, I think this could be something that's quite interesting for us. And that was it. So in terms of blockchain for telecoms, I've been exploring sort of Web3 blockchain telecoms for 4 or 5 years, helping Vodafone with others in the organization to explore use cases that we could take to MVP or POC and MVP. And also outside of that, of course, I've been into Web3 a far bit longer, sort of dabbling in the Bitcoin space and Ethereum and all things Web3 outside.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. And Vodafone's obviously a very big company, big group. Where do you sit within that kind of universe?
So I am actually part of Vodafone Business, which is on the Vodafone Group. And we actually have now, so I was previously part of Internet of Things, but we are, as a result of the Digital Asset Broker platform, which is a platform which has a Web3 engine to it, and is powering interoperable digital identities for IoT devices with wallets and transactions with smart contracts. As a result of that platform, which was launched last February 2022, we now have a new business division, which is dedicated to this platform and digital asset broker and the whole economy of things, as we call it. So in Vodafone Business, but in the digital asset broker street.
Right, amazing. Okay, that sounds very exciting. So, can you share with us what this platform is about, how it was conceived, what it aims to do, what we need to know about it? Yeah.
No, so the digital asset broker platform, as I said, came about through that exploration into use cases for telecoms and blockchain. And essentially, what we started out looking at is, okay, can we get a peer-to-peer micro payments transaction between two devices? How could we do that? What would the enablers be? How would it work? Could we do it over blockchain? So that we started many years ago, and we did a POC on Ethereum which was just looking, okay, could we have an Ethereum address? Could we send a token from one device to another? Could it be automated? And we soon realized that yes, you could do that, but that's only part of the puzzle. You know, to have a right to play, in this, what about if we could use our SIM card? And what about if we could link our SIM card to the blockchain? What about if we could somehow link our SIM card to having this interoperable identity passport, which was anchored on chain? What about if we could store a private key in the SIM, in the hardware secure module of the SIM card? What about if we could use that key so that we could have a device with the SIM card externally signed on chain? And that gave rise to the digital asset broker, which essentially provides IoT devices with a decentralized digital identity. So we call it the IoT Identity Passport. And that just basically means that the IoT devices move from being siloed and fixed to an organization to be able to trust and communicate with other devices across organizations, across industries, across silos, as long as they're part of the ecosystem. And also, the devices have wallets. The wallets linked to payment credentials. They can attach to smart contracts on our platform, and they have a digital key which can be used to authenticate and trigger those transactions. And we call those the sort of digital asset broker or DAB enablers for the economy of things. And obviously, the blockchain is playing a key role in providing trust for the identities, provenance of transactions, and peer-to-peer transactions as well on chain. So, yeah, really exciting. We're only at the beginning, so we're now also looking at how we can have a metaverse of things, how DAB can look at incorporating the identities of wearables, how we can incorporate NFTs, how we can incorporate token payments going forward. So there's a massive roadmap of things that we want to do, but we feel it's important that we prove ourselves. So the first use case we have is EV charging, so electronic vehicle charging, and it's prime for the capabilities that we have in DAB, because on the one side you have a car with a SIM card, which has the identity passport, which has the wallet, which has the private key, which has the ability to associate on the platform to smart contracts. On the other side, you have a charging point, and what the DAB protocol is doing is allowing the car to seamlessly, automatically transact with the charging point, where the car is using its identity, a payment credential associated with the car, to transact directly with the charging point. And with 1.2 million chargers needed across Europe by 2025, and a similar number in the UK, because we're not part of Europe anymore. There's a lot of growth in that area, and it's one where we are seeing a lot of interest in digital asset broker.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. Wow. I've got a million questions.
Sure. Let's go.
So this might be a long podcast. So look, first of all, just to break that down a little bit. I mean, that does sound really quite advanced, right? And probably a lot more than what most people are aware of in terms of what a telco is doing, what Vodafone is doing specifically in this space. So the identity that you talk about, is that already a reality, that there's a key in the SIM, or that the SIM is used as a sort of anchor for the blockchain identity?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a key part of the sort of proposition. So there's two ways we do it. So for newish SIMs, so the SIMs you have in cars and other devices, we have a DAB applet in the SIM card, which allows that SIM card, using the Java middleware in the SIM card, to generate multiple private-public key pairs. And the private keys are stored in a secure element on the SIM card, right? Right. That also meets a standard called IoT Safe, and you have certificates linked to the devices, and a certificate authority, a decentralized certificate authority, and that is it. So that's one way of doing it for new devices. But part of the problem we had was that not many. Well, you had a large proportion of devices that didn't have the new SIMs. So for that, we have some proprietary technology based on the GSMA 3GPP standards. So it's called generic bootstrap architecture. And this is where we can essentially bootstrap a key to the older devices. And that is something we call SIM trust, which is part of DAB.
Right.
And that allows us to do the same thing for older SIMs and in devices.
Right. Okay. And I guess the way the key works on the new devices, is that a GSMA standard as well?
Yeah, they're both standard.
Okay.
Yeah, they're both standard.
Yep.
It's just that we have a patent on the SIM trust standard, and obviously it's important because if you have a fleet of cars or you have a sort of automotive OEM, you want to be able to offer the same experience to all, right? So whereas there's one standard that will work for maybe 5-10%, from a business point of view, it wouldn't have been feasible because they would want to cover the whole estate of cards or chargers.
And do the keys and the key that sits on the SIM, can it be a key that supports some of the standard or the bigger blockchains out there, the public blockchains as well?
Absolutely. So one of the technologies that we have been able to manipulate to build the bridge between the SIM and the blockchain and what we call externally signing using that private key in the SIM card is elliptic curve cryptography. So elliptic curve cryptography has allowed us to build that bridge where you can externally sign using the private key on the SIM card with Hyperledger Fabric, with Ethereum, and also we have a workaround for Art Recorder.
Okay. And I guess now with account abstraction, it doesn't even matter now, right? You can kind of link to almost any blockchain that support account abstraction. You can now verify that key in the contract as well.
Exactly. Things have moved along nicely, and the interoperability of layer ones is moving along nicely.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. And then, in terms of blockchains, have you built it to work with a specific blockchain or work with anything, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it's a layer 2, and essentially what the protocol, DAB protocol, is doing, it's a protocol for how IoT devices, communicate with each other and with blockchains. Right? That is what it is. There's immense power, I believe, in looking at the sheer numbers. Right. So if you look, there's over 6 billion smartphones in operation. How powerful is that? Where those smartphones are able to sign externally and interoperate directly on a chain. And there's, I think in the next 5 to 7 years, anywhere from 50 to 70 billion IoT devices, and they don't have people with them, right? So the ability to give those devices identities, to link them to smart contracts, to allow them to sign, can actually bring an ecosystem of up to 70 billion IoT devices on chain. So from an adoption point of view, it's massive. And from a value point of view, I think that there's a whole suite of new business models that can be supported from this. Now, if we sort of look at how we interact with the layer ones, 4 or 5 years ago was a very different time in terms of the appetite of enterprises and business to look at blockchain. So of course we took the permission route, and we looked at a blockchain which was channel broadcast and which was sort of met all the security standards. So we went with Art Recorder as our first sort of layer 1. But now, as a layer 2, we're now extending to the public blockchain, so Ethereum, Hyperledger Fabric, and others, right? There's a few protocols that we're looking at. And I see them as infrastructure. Of course, there's going to be consolidation at that layer 1 level. But we're firmly playing at the layer 2, and as you correctly said, at the abstraction layer.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just say a word or two about account abstraction as well. I mentioned it earlier. This is a new feature that has now been launched on Ethereum as well, and EVM compatible chains, and we're seeing it on some of the other newer chains as well, especially the zero knowledge rollups. So account abstraction is basically a smart contract that acts as a wallet. And so like any smart contract, you can put rules into it about how it can be how it can be recovered, or what needs to be done to trigger transactions from that account.
So this is
Yeah.
ERC 4337.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Really exciting.
Yeah, and one of the big things that really is going to make it really usable for people is that these smart contracts will be treated as wallets by the wallet applications. So you'll be able to set rules about your account. And for IoT devices, I imagine this is particularly interesting because I probably want to set some limits about what my car can spend if it's being automatically connected to payments, or there might be some kind of direct debit type of functionality or something like that. And I could just have those limits or that programmability and those rules set in my IoT wallet through account abstraction.
I think it's ERC 4337 is very powerful. I think from a wallet point of view, it's very powerful. As you said, from an application to IoT, it's very powerful. I mean, we had been sort of trialing some of the same types of technology on the DAB protocol for a while now. I think what this does, and it links to this wallet of wallets concept, where essentially, I think with things like Wallet Connects, the Open Wallet project, etc., you're starting to see interoperability of wallets, right? So a long while ago, I think we were saying, we're moving towards the world of wallets. Yeah, we're not going to have focus on bank accounts or mortgages anymore. People, business, things, even countries will have wallets. Those wallets will have different accounts. Some of them will be blockchain accounts. Some of them will be traditional accounts. Smart contracts will be able to do some really exciting things across all of them. And part of our focus has been to basically provide a device wallet as part of the DAB capability, and a device wallet that can, following the principles of Wallet Connect, link to different types of payments. So not having a hard wallet, a hardware wallet, or a set wallet that just works on one chain, but essentially, the concept and the ambition is to have a wallet that can link to multiple payment credentials, including real world payment credentials, traditional banking payment credentials where required, and essentially trigger the payments using smart contracts. So I think Wallet Connect really powerful. I think the jury's still out, but I'm excited to learn more about the messaging advancements on that. But I think ERC 4337 is also really powerful, and I think when you're starting to bring all of these things together, it's taking us closer to that world of wallets. And from an IoT point of view, the automation of transactions across devices.
Yeah, amazing. Very exciting. David, one of my other questions from all of this that you're sharing with us. So we've talked about IoT devices. Has Vodafone explored this yet, or will it also work with consumer devices, mobile phones, or is that a separate, a different thing?
No, absolutely. So part of the three components of DAB. One is what we call root of trust at the edge, and we start with the SIM card because that's what we have control over. Vodafone has been a sort of leader in managed connectivity. We have 160 million IoT devices in the ecosystem. If you look at that from a DAB blockchain perspective, 160 million IoT devices immediately makes us one of, if not the biggest, platform for IoT that there is, right? Immediately, we have 160.
Even for overall accounts, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a massive shot in the arm, but we realize that not all the IoT devices have SIMs. So there is a way to connect to DAB using the cellular chip in the device, and you have some, and then that covers some Wi-Fi devices and others. We are working on making it multi-operator as well. So that root of trust at the edge is important to embrace IoT devices with different types of connectivity. And also what we're realizing in our journey into EV charging is the importance of people and smartphones, right? Which, for that particular use case, it wouldn't be the case for a cargo container with a sensor that's selling data, but it would be for EV charging where you have a person. And where you have a person and that person is part of the experience or part of the sort of checks and balances, we were also able to create a connection between the device identity and the person identity, and authenticate certain verifiable credentials. So in the case of a fleet driver, we can check before the fleet driver enters the car that they have a fleet credential, i.e. they're meant to be driving the car on that day. But we can also use that same credential to authenticate them to use the wallet and the payment credential in the car. So you're starting to see a connection between the person and the device. And one way that you have, one actor you have in that authentication is the mobile phone. So mobile phone as proxy, as we call it, or indeed use cases for sort of retail payments where you have a mobile phone device which is DoD enabled is also on the roadmap. The mobile phone is definitely on the roadmap. And again, it allows us to use our footprint to kickstart those use cases in the ecosystem.
Okay, that's interesting. Just touch on one of the points you mentioned. You talked about cargo tracking, for example. This is interesting because a lot of the use cases that we get presented and asked to build for are for tracking different types of cargo and using sensors in order to put the sensor information onto the blockchain. And one of the problems we've always had is that how do we authenticate that sensor information, right? How do we know it's original, it's come from the sensor itself when it hasn't been interfered with before it enters the blockchain system in the first place? And so we've asked, okay, we need some kind of key to be on the device itself. But if these sensors are enabled with a SIM, which they should be in order to be able to share data, they usually would be, then the SIM itself could sign on behalf of the device, on behalf of the sensor, if it has a key on it. And so if you put those two things together, I think that becomes really interesting, really powerful, because then you've got data on the blockchain or transactions being pushed to the blockchain from devices where the data, where we have digital, so what I'm looking for, provenance, if you like, and cryptographic provenance all the way back to the sensor, and you can trace that and prove it in the smart contract before you act on it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that is the power. One of the powerful things about DAB is the ability to allow a device to sign on behalf of its owner. So the device doesn't live in isolation, or but it's on behalf of an organization or a person. A device has a key which, under certain conditions outlined in the smart contract, it can sign for. For example, with the EV charging, we've got the car. So with EV charging, what happens is the car pulls up, you plug it in, you have a handshake between them, an identity check. You then have a tariff, and then you have the transaction. The transaction creates something called a charge data record, and that charge data record is basically used for the settlement, either using a real-time card payment or a post-pay settlement. Now, with DAB, we're able to get the car to sign that charge data record and the charger. So if you start looking at how you can bundle charging for auto manufacturers, or how you can have other sort of big players who want to include charging but want to pay on behalf of the car at a later date, you have a signed transaction which is written immutably to the blockchain, which can be used for that. So we're doing that for EV charging. And that is all made possible because we can essentially allocate a private key to the device that can be used to sign.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. And one more question, a bit on the technical side. So when you manage the identities, are you using a decentralized identity standards? Are you using DID, for example?
DID and VCs. It's very basic at the moment because we're trying to be a part of the IDAS 2.0 discussions. As you know, that there is a desire to extend that to IoT devices. So very basic credentials which are sort of issued and verified. But yeah, we are following the DID method.
Yeah. Okay, good. David, that alone, I could probably talk to you for hours about, right? Just thinking about the use cases that we deal with and so and our customers and so on. But I'd like to move on a little bit. So, you're in this space, obviously, sitting at Vodafone and also getting a panoramic view of what's going on in crypto and in enterprise blockchain and just in the tech in general. What are you excited about?
I think that's a really, really good question. Had you asked me that last year, my
Yeah.
number one would have been digital identity. My number two would have been NFTs. And my number three would have been what I call the metaverse as a framework to pull all this together. I suppose now it's been interesting because we've been on this journey. Events have happened. So the middle of 2021 was the most fantastic high. And then we've gone on a sort of roller coaster, well, more a downward roller coaster since 2021.
A blip, a blip.
A blip, yeah. Which which has obviously made us rethink. I mean, what am I excited about? I'm still very, very excited about the potential of Web3. I'm excited about the fact that we are now forcing some clarity and regulation. And I think the token economy is going to take off. I think it will include central bank digital currencies. I think we're only beginning to see the potential of what NFTs can do for consumers and for businesses. I think digital identity with initiatives like EIDAS 2.0 from the EU, is now needed to drive some of the things that's happening with AI and the metaverse. So I think those are the things I'm excited about. I would have also spoken about the metaverse and being excited about the metaverse and the 5 trillion opportunity by 2030. I think, you have the hype cycles and some of the excitement died down with Microsoft not making the sort of money they expected to, and issues around adoption. But, I think if you look at where we were with with mobile phones and how that started off, we're going to see a lot of innovation to make access to the metaverse better, and a lot of innovation to make the metaverse better as well once you're in there. So I think that's exciting. But I think the one thing you cannot miss out now is this whole generative AI and what's happened with the OpenAI and Chat GPT, and I think that now comes into it. In a big way, in the sense that you now have, Web3, this whole AI, generative AI, and the metaverse framework all coming together to forge this new world. And we're starting to see, I was reading an article this morning about, AI-driven radio stations. You got the head of IBM talking about the jobs that the white collar jobs that can be replaced with AI. But I think AI needs a conscience, right? And I think that conscience and check and balance can be Web3. I think provenance. I think some of the ways that communities are acting and voting, etc. Could our consensus
Governance
protocols, it could be a way to govern how this technology moves forward. But I think it's also a way where these technologies can be transacted real time, where we can trace that back to a person, etc. So I think that whole axis of Web3, generative AI, and metaverse are still the three pillars that excite me.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I mean, we're obviously, we're part of this space as well. And when we look at this, I guess any hype cycles usually go over the top. Right? It's already happened a couple of times in the blockchain space, and then when they go over the top, they usually drop quite fast and quite hard. But I think behind them there is interesting technology. There's technical efficiencies. That's a thing that we're really after, and the value that we see in the tech. I think if you've got an IoT device which is handling small payments and it's doing it directly from the device itself, and it's got rules which are secured through a blockchain, then you're potentially looking at increased security around that payment, and lowering the overall transaction costs of processing those payments. You've got an efficiency there just in that space alone, which I think is a technical efficiency, which is a value. So hype, no hype, whatever. I think if there's value there, there's value there, right? And obviously it takes time for the narrative, and especially with the cycle we've just been through and some of the bad actors, takes time for people to get comfortable with the technology again. But for me, if the tech works and it brings efficiencies, all the rest should fall into place over time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think if we look at numbers, at the last count that I had, and it may have changed, but there was over 300 million people who own the digital assets. So roughly an ecosystem of 300 people who are involved in Web3 in some way or another. Mm-hmm. We have over 6 billion people with smartphones across the world, billions of IoT devices. The value of bringing those smartphones and IoT devices to Web3 from an adoption point of view is absolutely massive. What can be done where you have that adoption and you have the power of smart contracts and other capabilities on Web3, could be really powerful. So, looking forward to more of that, to be honest, Adi.
Yep. Can I ask you, David, have you come across some of these, decentralized infrastructure networks? So networks that have, different types of routers and so on.
So are you talking about sort of blockchain as a service?
Not so much blockchain as a service, but more so communications infrastructure, whether it's Wi-Fi routers.
Okay.
Routers,
so you're talking about mesh networks, right?
Mesh networks, yes.
Yes. So I have. So I think Helium is one of them that obviously has a lot of attention, and it's really interesting. Obviously, with my current badge on, it's something that is part of the evolution, right? And you already sort of see, how you can bring efficiencies where there's no coverage, and how we need innovation for this. So I mean, it's something that's very, very interesting. Mesh networks, and I'm sure it's an area where, again, digital identity, transactions, and the ability to have security across devices is really important to do that. But it's mesh networks. Excited me 2-3 years ago, and I think it's an exciting topic.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these things are kind of in spurts, and then there's like an initial attempt, and then it may or may not work, and it's interesting. But again, just to describe these a little bit. So my understanding of it is it's really a token-based system where people, I guess individuals, can host these devices, and they get rewarded with tokens, and those devices come together to form some kind of, they provide some kind of communication service. So it could be, for example, a bunch of Wi-Fi routers that people host, and people walking by can maybe connect to them in some way. And then there's a token economy around that. So
it's Bluetooth and Wi-Fi direct, and and it's early days. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, if you can introduce a sustainability side to that, but I mean, all of this is areas where I see that the communication service providers will evolve to anyway, and some of it using more traditional mesh, some of it including maybe some IoT mesh. But it's something where I see an evolution where traditional players will be a part of it, and it's all about bringing efficiencies. I mean, obviously, the sort of core spine of connectivity has been built, and that's sort of fiber and radio networks and core networks. And that is serving billions of people at the moment. But you still have areas where connectivity could be improved. You have areas where some people don't have the right connectivity to allow them to participate in the creator economy or other opportunities, sometimes in developing countries. So I think anything we can do to sort of level the balance, lower the costs, improve the performance, I'm sure all connectivity service providers will sort of be looking at that to move it forward. And I think the token side of it, or rewarding for doing that, is an obvious thing.
Yeah. Okay, good. David, before we go, a question that I ask most of our guests. Have you got a book you've read recently or that you'd recommend to the listeners?
So I'd probably say The Platform Economy by Tapscott is it's probably one that I'm in the process of reading. I think it's good. There's some metaverse books that I've got to read. I'm writing one myself, so I don't want to be too influenced. My book is entitled "The Business of Metaverse." How you can use Web3 for that, and it will be out in December. I'm actively reading and actively watching what's happening, and there's some really exciting initiatives. And what's interesting is that we're getting this excitement, especially in the business and enterprise world, at a time where we've seen sort of cryptocurrency market go down, and there's been a lot of boom in the markets. But actually, in terms of what's happening for the protocols and the investment going in there, and the investment for Web3 in sort of business and enterprise has gone up, especially in the metaverse. So in the metaverse, 120 billion was invested in the first 6 months of 2022. I don't know how that panned out towards the end, but it was, there's still a lot of money going into Web3 metaverse, and of course, there's going to be a lot more going into generative AI now. So exciting times.
Yeah, this is also what we've been feeling from our customers. Is actually the enterprises are kind of coming with new requirements now, whereas previously it was kind of crypto stealing the show. Enterprises are now we're getting more and more inquiries and requests, sort of enterprises looking at different aspects of the tech now, especially as it's maturing.
I wanted to ask you, Adi. So, how important do you think the merge, right? So for Ethereum, the move from proof of work to proof of stake, which I understand reduced the energy consumption of the Ethereum protocol by maybe over 90%, at least when it happened. And now you have other EIPs which will come in to increase the TPS. How important do you think the merge, that move from proof of work to proof of stake, and also the current initiatives, EIPs coming in to improve performance, will be to make public blockchain more attractive for business?
Yeah,
I'm interviewing you now. So I wanted to get your view on it.
No, I'm happy to answer to be interviewed as well. But it's a big question. Right? I think first of all, the merge, if nothing else, I think was an incredible engineering achievement. Right, so to have a relatively decentralized, open organization execute on a living, live protocol with billions of dollars of value on it, and effectively have an open heart transplant, right? They effectively changed the engine, and it just went smoothly. I think it's an incredible engineering feat. So that's amazing in itself. It obviously makes Ethereum more scalable, or it will make it more scalable in the future. It will bring down the price, and it will also make it much more palatable for a lot more people who obviously care about the environment and potential damage to the environment through the extensive proof of work. So I think it's something that had to be done. There will always be the purists who will say that proof of work has the incentive, the incentive mechanisms which are maybe harder than proof of stake, and therefore on some level maybe more secure. But Ethereum itself is obviously very well decentralized, right? And that's why still most of the value in the blockchain space, in the crypto space, is either on Ethereum itself or bridged from it, right? So originating from it. I think it's as high as 90%. So I think that in itself is super interesting. Then I think there's the scaling. Vitalik obviously has a roadmap for scaling Ethereum, but if you listen to him, on the one hand, there's sharding. On the other hand, he talks a lot about zero-knowledge rollups. Yeah. And these ZK rollups... Yes. And in particular, so ZK snarks is zero-knowledge proofs, which really have two primary uses that we've seen. One is for data privacy, but the other is for scalability, because the proofs can allow us to take some data and then create a compact proof about that data. So it's being used, so that's a compression, and it's being used to have these layer twos where you have maybe tens of thousands of transactions, and they can get compressed into a single transaction, which gets posted to layer one Ethereum. And that is part of Ethereum's own scaling vision now, is that Ethereum will be this decentralized anchor rock in the middle, if you like, and then we'll have these zero-knowledge roll-ups that will roll up to it with very scalable transaction throughputs outside, and potentially also privacy, because anybody could really host a ZK roll-up protocol, and nobody would see the transactions. We'd only have proof about the transactions, cryptographic proof on the layer 1, which could be verified without revealing anything, unless it was unless somebody wanted to reveal and use those transactions on layer 1. So I think that's where I think we're going with this, and where Ethereum's going. And I think it's at least on paper, it looks like it will give us the best of all worlds, really, because we'll be able to anchor transactions in the decentralization of Ethereum, but we'll be able to have massive scalability outside of it, and also privacy and enterprise requirements and so on met, but without compromising those. So I think that's how we had to get the best of both worlds.
No, I think it was massive as well. I think it was one of the biggest steps I've seen for making public blockchains more attractive for business and enterprise. So I think it's really important. Also, I know from sort of what Vitalik was saying that he also made reference to mobile phones and mobile phones participating in the consensus going for in the future, which of course excited me, and I posted on it because I think that's where it's going to go as well. Exciting times ahead, and as I said, one of the other things I've seen is this as a service model, where essentially you're getting a lot of people offering trust as a service, where you need to have a sort of consensus or trust as part of your solution. You call an API and they do it. I don't know what your views on that is. From a purist point of view, it doesn't sort of fit in with the whole decentralized model. But this seems to be how they're making that sort of bridge between enterprise, API-based technology and Web3.
I think it's okay as long as you have the cryptographic trail. If you have the key anchored in the enterprise, where if you know where the data is coming from and you have cryptographic proof of that, that's fine. If you start with a non-cryptographic API, and that's receiving data from somewhere, but we don't have cryptographic anchor or proof or signature or something of where it's come from, then I think we've lost something. So I think we have to have the cryptographic audit trail. A few things just to link to some of the things we're doing. So with silent data, which is a kind of oracle that we have, we can link to Web2 APIs, standard APIs, which aren't enabled for blockchain, but which are HTTPS based. So they have a server that has a key, an SSL key, and we can use that in order to prove that the data's come from those data sources. Nice. So there are ways. So there's ways to solve for that.
Yeah, so let's have a conversation on that, Adi. That's cool.
Yeah. Of course. The other thing is, David, we've just published a report on our own predictions from a tech perspective for 2023. So nothing about tokens, nothing about the regulation, pure tech. But we've touched there on wallets, hardware wallets, these zero knowledge roll-ups, and so on. And I think we need to talk about IoT there as well. So I'll share that with you, and maybe we can do something together on that as well.
We'd love to sort of discuss the economy of things, or the metaverse of things.
And I think the SIM as a wallet is super interesting. So I'd love to reference that as well.
Excellent, no problem.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adi.
All right, David. Thank you very, very much. That was super interesting. Thank you for listening to the Applied Blockchain podcast. Make sure you follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter for more updates. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, please let us know by leaving a review and clicking subscribe. Until next time.